Okay, so let's see what we got on this one. Number one, about what percentage, based on the empirical rule, about what percentage are between 62 and 68 inches? About what percentage are there between 62 and 68 inches? All right, so let's draw the picture. We've got a mean of 64. So that 64 goes right in the middle. All right, so again, we're using the empirical rule, and so, well, 62 and 68 would be one on one side, one on the other. All right, so I want that percentage between those two. The empirical rule, like we said, is based on the standard deviations above or below the mean. How many standard deviations is 62 away from the mean? Well, the standard deviation in this case is 2, and so to get to 62, how many standard deviations would you go? That's one standard deviation. Now, standard deviation is 2, and so I'd go one standard deviation, right? That's one standard deviation below. On the other hand, 68, well, if I go one standard deviation, I'm at 66, so I have to go 2 standard deviations to get to it from the mean. So that tells me, if I remember my percentages here, which percentages to use. One standard deviation below, I'm going to use the 68%. You don't have to write all this, but 2 standard deviations, oops, that's above. So that triggers me to think 95% to use it. However, I don't use those exact percentages because I'm not talking both sides 1 standard deviation or both sides 2 standard deviations, and that's what the 68, 95%. No, what I'm going to use is this percentage would be half of 68, wouldn't it?
34.
34. Half of 68. This percentage over here, well, it's 2 standard deviations, it's 95, but I'm only talking one side, if you will, of that, so
47.5.
47.5, half of the 95.
So it would be 8, so you add those up.
Just add those together. Yeah.
81.5.
34, so the answer would be 34 plus 47. Okay, so that's, yeah, 81.5, is that what you said? All right? So,
When we're showing our work, do you want us to do like each standard deviation, like you did the 66 down
just, yeah, I mean,
there? You want us to make those?
I wrote a lot, but yeah, just do what you need to do, okay? All right. But, you know, helps to understand it this way, so that's why I do it. Now, here's a little bit of a wrinkle that can be thrown in here. About what percentage, a couple of wrinkles, about what percentage are between, let's do 66 and 70 inches. About what percentage are between 66 and 70 inches? First of all, let's note the difference between number 1 and number 2 here. All right, so I still got the same mean as 64. But I've got 66 and 70, and so where are those both?
On the right side.
They're on the right, yeah. So that's one difference I can see here. From the previous ones I've done, in this case I've got 66 over here, and also I've got 70 over here. They're on the same side. I want to know the percentage between them. Okay, so, but do note there, those are on the same side. So that's going to change something here in a second. All right, but it's still the same thing, using the empirical rule. 66 is, remember the standard deviation is 2, and so 66 would be 1 standard deviation above. And so that tells me to use the 68%. And then the 70, well, 70, maybe I should put it further out because how many is 70 away?
3.
It's 3, yeah, because I go 66 is 1, 68 would be 2, so 70 would be 3 standard deviations. Going by 2 in this case, in each case. So that triggers me, I'm going to use the 99.7% because it's 3 standard deviations away. All right, now, here's the issue. To get to this, all right, so here's what's going on with this one. So I'm using the 68% for the 66, but if I take half of the 68, that's going to give me 34% right here. Because half of the 68, 34, that gives me between the mean and the mean and the value. That's this amount, which is not really what I'm going for, but we're going to use it in a second. Then, again, I'm only talking 3 standard deviations above, and so I take half of that, which is 49.85, okay? What does that give me? Well, that gives me from here to here. That is 49.85. I know it's kind of messy in this particular case, but do you see how I get this, how I get that then? How would I get that? I would take the 49.85 and subtract the 34%, right? Because from here to here is 49.85, here to here is 34, so isn't that subtracting the 2? So instead of adding, I subtract it. And that's what's going to happen. When you have them on the same side, those values are on the same side, you're going to wind up subtracting percentages if you do it this way. What is that, 15.85? All right, so you might make a note, yeah. So if my values are on opposite sides, what's going to happen is I'm going to wind up subtracting the percentages. In this case, the halves of my percentages. Okay? So that is a little bit of a wrinkle there. All right, then another thing that can happen is this. Number 3. What percentage are less than, let's use the 66 in there. Same mean and standard deviation. What percentage are less than 66? All right, so here we go. Same graph, same picture. 64 in the middle, 66 over here to the right. Again, I'm using the empirical rule, so I want to know, and so the percentage I'm interested in is less than 66, so I'm talking about this all the way to this, all the way infinitely out to that, right? 66 and less, so that's the percentage I need. All right, so that's the picture. Now, by empirical rule, figure out the number of standard deviations. Again, 66 is 1 standard deviation above, right? 2 standard deviations 2, so that's 1 standard deviation above, which is the 68%. However, here's what I'm going to do with that. So what I can get out of that 68% is this percentage right here from the mean to 66 is 34%, half of the 68. But that's just this little piece. I've got a whole bunch more to add to that though. I've got this part. What do I know about that part?
Just half, so it's 50%.
That's 50%, isn't it? That's from the mean down. And we said right from the get-go, if we're going from the mean all the way down, that's 50%. Half of the graph is below the mean. Half is above, and half. So that's 50% here. So what percentage are less than 66? 50 plus 34. 84%. So you see why the picture is kind of important, okay? Because it tells you what you got to do. If you got two values on the same side, you're probably going to wind up subtracting. If you got two values on either side, one on either side, you're going to be adding. If you got one value, you're probably going to have to use the 50%. Now, here's the other thing I was going to mention. They may ask this. All right, so this is 3A. How many girls' heights, or how many heights, let's say it that way, how many heights are less than 66 inches or something like that? That's probably better phrasing, but. Well, it's 84%, but I've got 1,000 girls, so it's 84% of 1,000. So you may have to, if they ask that, sort of figure out your percentage and then multiply it by the number of people in this case, or things they give you. See what I'm saying? 84 or 0.84 times 1,000. So that's 840. So you'd have 840 of them would be 84% of 1,000. 840 of them would be expected to be less than 60%. Sometimes you may have to multiply by that number that you give. Okay. Well, one more thing on this particular problem. All right, so percentage less than 66. But here's one other thing that can go on. Number 4, what percentage are less than 60 inches? The same sort of problem. However, 64 is in the middle, 60 is to the left. Right? It's a little different. Still, I mean, you're still thinking through the same thing. Empirical rule, need to know how many standard deviations. How many standard deviations is 60 away from the mean? About one would be 62 down, and then another standard deviation. I'm going by twos here. So that would give me the 62, and then down another would be 6. So it's 2 standard deviations below. So that's triggering me the 95%, but I'm only below it, so I'm doing half of that, which is 47.5%. But that percentage is here. That 47.5 is right there. That's not the one I want.
Would you just take that, and 50 minus?
Aha. So what I'm going to have to do here is use the 50% again, but I'm not going to add 50%. The 50% is from here down, right? From here all the way down, that's 50%. This piece is 47.5, so wouldn't this piece right here be half, 50% minus 47.5? 2.5, yeah. So the answer here is I subtract the percentage from 50. So the moral of this story is, if you've got a less than, you're either going to subtract from 50 or you're going to add to 50. See what I'm saying? If it's less than, you can't say, well, I've got to add 50 to it, because sometimes you may be subtracting from 50. Okay? But if it's less than, you're either going to add to 50 or subtract from 50. Guess what happens for more than? Same thing. If it's less than or more than, you're either add to 50 or subtract from 50. And, the picture kind of helps. So you either add to 50% or subtract from 50%. Whatever, whatever the empirical rule percentage gives you. Okay? So that's a little note for you there. Okay. All right.